cool. There you are, Marshall. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi there.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. It works with the time zones. Great.
Yeah, time zones are always fun in this. Always been an adventure. So your name, it's Ebru, right?
Yes, I'm Ebru. Thank you for joining to my program.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
How are you today?
Thank you for having me.
How's life in America?
I'm good. It's very hot right now. I mean, we're in a big old heat wave, and my daughter just finished pageant. She's 13, and they have this thing called the Dairy Days here in Boise, Idaho, and she just finished that. And so it's been a busy week. It's been a busy one. But yeah, it's been fun.
Great. Thank you for joining to, as I said, to my program and answering some questions, because I saw your channel just by chance, and I think your channel is quite interesting because it's not about explaining the trauma bond. It's also to recover and healing and to put the focus on it, because personally, and in my opinion, it's very important to put the energy and the focus on the healing process. And I think it's great work you're doing.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
I'm just curious, how did you start with a YouTube channel? Was it the motivation that you, what was the motivation for it?
What motivated it is my own experience. So I grew up in a culture and a family unit that was driven by narcissism, and I was impacted with it. I had developed some of my own, what they call narcissistic fleas or toxic behaviors, as well as codependency. And this cycle had harmed a lot of relationships. And I'd gone to therapy, and I'd 200 books I've read. and I'd even been looking at what other people had been talking about on YouTube at that time, because this was 2009, 2010. And it helped me understand some things, but it didn't get me down the road. And so I started to, I'm kind of a stubborn person. If I'm not finding the solution, I'll find it myself. So I went out and started playing with things, discovering aspects of it, working through my own trauma, and really started to understand what it takes to become non-codependent or self-respecting and self-advocating, to become an individual, really. And I didn't see that being taught, at least in a way that made sense to me or that was effective. There's a lot of strong positive information on the internet about narcissism, but codependency is often either seen as a disease or an identity or something that you're going to have to live with. And I discovered that's not actually the case, that it's actually a survival strategy. And I wanted to teach people what I discovered, and to show them that we aren't stuck in this world of being codependent anymore. We can actually be free and, even better, happy. We can have lives that we enjoy, relationships that are safe and healthy. And so, yeah, that's what motivated me to create it, is to share my own discoveries and see if they made an impact on others, and they do. So, yeah.
I think this is very important what you said, because it's how you said it, survival strategy. Because yes. I think when you're trauma bonded, it starts in the childhood. You tend to see nearly everything in a positive way, just to survive, because what you are experiencing is so damaging and so negative and so toxic that a child can't deal with it, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't. A child's nervous system and their brain don't have the capacity to understand the complexity of their experience for a number of reasons. One, they don't have a contrast. They don't have an alternative experience or view to see this thing through. To them, it's normal. This is what love feels like. Love is scary. Love is unsafe. Love is unreliable. Love is intense. It's chaotic. Attachment's not secure. Attachment's either I've got to chase after and earn that love, or I've got to run from it because it's going to control and consume me. So there's no real safety, but all of this is real normal to them, to the nervous system, to the child's brain. And so this trauma bond in the child's point of view is they are already dependent on the parent. They don't have power to take care of themselves, and they instinctively know that. So to survive, their body goes into what's called a fawn response. So biologically, we either respond to a threat with fighting it, if we can defeat it, fleeing from it, if we can get away from it. But you can't really do that with your parents, especially as a child. So you freeze, you brace, you get ready for something to happen, and then you fawn. And this fawning is actually an emotional experience of gratitude, affection, and love towards the abuser. Now, this happens in adults too. So it's not just children. This is the same experience an adult can experience in an abusive relationship. And that's what we confuse that with I love them, though. And for the child, they do. It's their parent. They need their parent to survive. For the adult, it's that they have been cut off or disconnected from their own sense of individuality and their own discernment in order to exit that. Instead, they're like, I keep this person because they're meeting some need in me. So this is better than nothing, so I keep this around. And so rather than feel like they're starving, they keep the toxic relationship around because it's normal.
I think you've very well explained it. I think it's such a complicated issue, but very well explained. Is it the reason why somebody who's in a trauma bond is going to be attached for a narcissistic person? Is it one of the reasons?
Yeah, they're attracted. There's a dynamic that happens in the attraction. The narcissistic individual is attracted to the codependent or the non-codependent that becomes codependent, because they sense a way in which to use this person for supply, to elevate their sense of power, their sense of image, their sense of value, because narcissistic individuals are typically quite empty and they're riddled with a sense of shame. And so they become very grandiose and entitled in reaction to that emptiness and shame. The codependent, because they're not anchored in their boundaries, they're conscious to what their intuition and their body is saying to them. And because if they grew up in a dynamic of being neglected and abused, this is normal, feels familiar, they run for it. And they're doing this subconsciously. It's not a conscious choice. It's just like, oh, this person loves me. They like me. They're giving me all this attention. Finally, someone sees me. Someone loves me. I need this. And this is an incredibly emotionally intense experience for them. Sometimes it's just like, well, they're better than what I've had, so I'm just going to go with it. And then they fall into the fawning, and that activates the bonding chemicals of oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. And they're literally bonding with this individual like a child bonds with their parent. So it's why it's really difficult to exit it.
Yeah, and this is the point where the abuse starts, isn't it?
Yeah, you go through this thing called seduction, and that is the person, giving the codependent the attention, the codependent's giving that back to the narcissistic person. You got this dance going on, and then once the narcissistic individual's like, I've got the supply secured, they feel secure enough in that this person isn't gonna, leave. They start to abuse them, and often it's the polar opposite of what they were doing in the seduction phase. So the things that they said they love about the codependent, they now can't stand. They start nitpicking, they start controlling. Depending on the person, they can control body, like what the person wears, what their weight is, what they're eating. They attack their dreams, their hopes. They go straight after their boundaries because they want the codependent. They get a kick out of how much power and control, or technically coercion, they can exert onto codependent, and the codependent goes into a severe state of distress at this point.
I think you have explained it already, but can you say very briefly what codependency is, very briefly?
Codependency is a survival strategy. It's how we get our needs met in a toxic and unreliable relationship.
Okay. And do you think it's possible to get rid of it, to get out of it, the situation of the trauma bond?
Yes, absolutely it is. But it does require some deep work, both on healing specific traumas that might be unique to that individual, but also learning who they are, how to occupy their own space, how to execute their own power, and how to meet their needs and wants within themselves and interdependently with others in healthy ways. So really, the solution to the trauma bond is to become an individual to yourself, that has safe, secure bonds, both within inside yourself and with others.
Why do you think somebody's constantly going back to a partner who abuses them and treats them badly? Why do you think it happens?
It happens because the bond between them and the abuser is so overwhelming that they feel they need that person in order to help them feel lovable, to feel worthy, to feel complete. And this is driven by what I call codependent fantasy.
Yes.
So codependent fantasy is they complete me, I need them, I can fix them. It's just their trauma talking. If they'll heal and I can heal them with my love, they'll be the person I think they can be. And then it gets into this idea of better than nothingness, because there's a scarcity component the codependent lives with. And they're like, well, I haven't had love. It's not been reliable. It's been scarce. Safety and attachment have been scarce and unreliable. At least someone's paying something to me. So it's called breadcrumbing. At least I'm getting some breadcrumbs. It's better than starving. And so they'll tolerate relationships in order not to feel like they're starving or they don't exist or that they're isolated in the world. And so that's why they go back.
And at that point, they say that he's or she's my soulmate, isn't it?
A lot of times they'll aggrandize it that way, and because that's part of the fantasy is this person is the only one special, it's significant, and sometimes this is a direct reflection of what the narcissistic person communicated to them. It can be an internalized fantasy that the codependent built in their childhood about being rescued, about being chosen, about being wanted, because they weren't wanted. They weren't wanted by the parents. They weren't wanted by their peers. And so when this is actually happening to them, it's like a dream come true. It's a little piece of Disneyland in that respect. It's a really euphoric experience for them.
You mentioned it already, better than nothing trap. Can you just explain it very briefly again?
Yeah, BTN, or the better than nothing trap, is the belief that I can't get better than this, so I need to tolerate what I've got. There isn't anything better. Nobody else would love me. I'm not worth it. But this person does, so I'm getting something, so I'd rather have that than starve to death emotionally.
This is very sad, isn't it? I mean, you have just one life and you're just wasting it somehow without knowing it. I mean, you know it because
you're surviving.
Yes, right. Exactly. You don't. Yes.
Yeah, you're suffering, but you're suffering because you're in survival, and you're in survival because you don't know any other way to do it. See, codependency is a result of doing what you know. It's not an intelligence issue. It's not it's not a disease or an identity. It's more of I only know this. And the problem with our brains is it can only do what it knows. And so until it becomes willing to face the terror of the unknown, because most of us have a pretty scared relationship with the unknown at times, until they're ready to face that pain, they're going to stay what they know. And so that's what I help people become curious about what else is possible. And that starts to break open the door a little bit. It's like, what if you didn't have to be codependent? What if you could be loved for who you are without giving yourself up? What if you could be you and have some peace in it? Things like that.
This is what you are encouraging people and coaching, to distinguish between emotions from others and their own, put boundaries, because boundaries are important. And you also said, give back what is not ours.
Right. Yeah, all of those are functions of being individualized, or what's called differentiated from other people. So if I have an emotion and I am in my codependent self, I'm going to confuse their feelings for my feelings. Oh, they're angry. Well, I have to be angry. Oh, they're sad. I have to be sad. Oh, I'm sensing their sadness because I'm feeling it, or I am mimicking their emotions. But as an individualized person, I can be like, in their yard, I'm separate from that. I know what my feeling is and what their feeling is. And maybe they're the same feeling. Maybe they're sad and I'm sad, but I can tell the space between them. It's space between you and the other individual that helps you start going, oh, that's not me. Oh, this is me. And that's how we can give things back that aren't ours, because we realize that, oh, I'm carrying your your sadness for you. I'm going to give that back to you. And instead I'm going to hold space for you, or I'm going to sit with you and just be with you as you go through this emotional experience.
Mm-hmm. This is something children learn when they are 5, 6 years old. This is mine, this is yours. And
if they're properly raised, yeah.
Yes.
Generally. And a lot of times the child already has an instinct of that's not mine, this is mine. They're starting to get this idea of individuality and separateness. And if their parents aren't healthy or attuned, they may squash that down. If they're abusive, they absolutely will, because the parent wants the child for supply. If they're narcissistic parents, they're like, no individuality for you. You get to be who I tell you to be. Mm-hmm. So a child gets stuck in that development stage.
So it appears to me it is not a cultural issue. I think it's all over the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty universal. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the way narcissism has been vaulted into places of power and culture, and it's been woven into economies and stuff like that. And now we're coming conscious to it, and we're like this is unhealthy, this is harmful. Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of in what I would see as a we're moving out of denial, and we're moving into an awakening to sobriety, going, this isn't how things have to work, and it certainly hurts a lot. So let's see what else is going on, see if we can make some changes. But yeah, it's pretty frequent.
It is quite difficult, I think, with social media and everything on the internet to find a real partner, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be challenging when you don't know what a healthy relationship looks like or feels like or behaves like or talks like, because I mean, you go on just on TV, we got like the reality TV shows, right? The relationship things, and we're going to do this in 8 weeks or 12 weeks. And then you have like movies that are constantly rehashing this chaos of intensity, and then a breakup, and you get back together. And we're conditioned to think that relationships are dramatic and chaotic, and that love is intense, when in reality, love is consistent and it's solid. And it's for some people, it can feel really boring because it doesn't have this massive adrenaline cycle all the time that comes with the chaos and the abuse. Yeah, we can find healthy people, but a lot of times it starts with us becoming healthy with ourselves, and then being willing to grow a relationship with someone into whatever you guys might define as happiness or satisfaction, because that's a really personal thing, whatever that is for the couple, or however many people are in the relationship. But yeah, it takes work, but not the work of fixing yourself. It's the work of learning how to communicate well, regulate attachment, and manage conflict, so it creates safety and intimacy.
So it gives me hope. Happiness and real partnership is possible, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. My current relationship functions that way. We're very attuned and attentive to each other. We're very much open and curious about what we feel, what we need, how we're doing. We work really hard to catch our expectations and turn them into requests. We keep mindful of our boundaries. We're very respectful about our individual need for either space with ourselves to do our own things, or the need we have to come together and do things together. We're very plain, very direct, clear, and simple in our communication as well. So we work really hard to keep it safe, to keep it vulnerable and respectful and kind.
I think there is a similarity between the narcissist and child, which is traumatized in the childhood, but there are differences because some children go or function and role as a victim, and the other one goes to the other side and abuses others. So how does it come, do you think? Because both
I think there's a number of influences, including personality type, the way the brain is structured, where the person finds their greatest sense of power, because there can be a lot of power in taking the victim role and appealing to people, or being invisible. The power is I can control what happens by not existing. Narcissistic brains tend to look at power as a form of coercion, so they force people to give them what they need. And I think a lot of times the person's relationship to shame and exposure dictates which path they'll take dominantly, whether it's going to be more of the codependent control, enable, fix, people please kind of thing, or the narcissist, grandiose, also control, discard, and their what I call victim entitlement. They are entitled to harm other people because they feel pain too. And that I think has a lot of nurture and nature influences.
I personally don't want to blame the upbringing or the parents or the caretaker, because it depends on oneself, I think, what you are doing out of the trauma you have experienced, isn't it? At the end,
I think there's accountability in how, I mean, it really is contextually sensitive, because you have well-meaning but not well-attuned parents, then you have abusive parents, and you know, everyone's accountable for what they do. So the parent's accountable for their choices and actions. The child learns to come into accountability for their choices and actions as they grow up. But the parent has an absolute influence over the child, and that influence is something the parent is accountable to. And it's really important that the child feels seen and valued and validated in that, because parents have an enormous amount of power and influence over a child that needs accountability. It needs to be like, oh, well, you know, you were the parent. But over time, I mean, depending on what the parent does, the child can come to understand the parent's context and their arena, and then they can move towards catharsis and healing. But that does require both the parent and the child to understand their experiences, what they're accountable for. Like, adult children can't blame their parents necessarily for all the choices the adult child makes. But the parent does have some accountability for the impact the parent had on the child.
Yes.
In the child's life. So there is a lot of complexity and nuance to that dynamic.
Yes. I think
I have a lot of compassion for the parents, because I am a parent.
Yes.
And I have a lot of compassion for the children, because I am a child. I'm a survivor of bad parenting, basically. But I can understand where my parents come from, but I don't excuse their behavior because of that understanding. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And, you know, until you value what I went through, I don't know that I can meet you where you're at.
And how do you try to help people, to support people? Do you like to tell us more about the way that you're trying to explain these issues to your clients, the people on YouTube?
Yeah. And what I do is I've got the YouTube channel, and then I have my Facebook group called Thriving Beyond Codependency. And then I mentor through courses that I teach. I have several recorded courses, and then I do live ones throughout the year. People can join. And part of those courses are these twice a week things I do called live mentoring hours, where you can log into a secure Zoom room and speak with me about your situation, and we can work with it, give you guidance, support, hold space for you. And you do this with other students as well. And so I interact pretty intensely with my Facebook group and with my students that way. So that's how I do it. It's both paid courses and then guidance through the YouTube channel, Facebook Lives, and Facebook group.
Are you also using diagrams? I like it because it helps to understand chemical things in the brain, how they function. And for me, it helps quite a lot to watch your videos.
I do a lot of my martial art, my stick people art. And a lot of this, I mean, you got to have a solid understanding of how trauma works in order to help people going through this. So most of my training has been focused on trauma work, and then relationship dynamics, and then individuation or identity development. So
I think, those videos help quite a lot. I think in the past there weren't videos like that. I mean, why? So I could be rescued earlier somehow.
Right, and that was one of the struggles I found as I was watching a lot. I'm like, well, this is great information. It makes sense, but what do I do now?
Yes.
And so I focused on the what do I do now? Because I think that's all that I think, well, the other aspect is absolutely necessary. You got to understand it. But what do you do now is the point of understanding. It's like, well, now I understand it. So how can I heal? And that's why I created the channel. That's why I do what I do.
Great, great. And what are your future plans? Where do you want to go?
Where do I want to go? Like in business or in this work, or, you know,
both of them, with your channel and your dreams and what you're wishing for other people and yourself.
One of my biggest goals for the people I serve is to watch them have more happiness, whatever that is for them. And so my goal at the channel and my work is to help people really know, love, and live who they are. That is my passion. That's what I love doing. I have a lot of cool little tools and processes and practices that work really deeply with people. And that's my future, is building that out so people can, rather than having like this facade of confidence, like, okay, I gotta make myself confident. You feel it, you can tap into it. If you got emotions showing up, hey, you have peace with them. You can understand what they're telling you, and you can meet your needs in a way that feels good to you and the other people. And then ultimately relationships that work, and you're out there doing things that you like to do, whatever it might be. So that's my big goal with the channel and with my business. My personal goals, I got a number of weird ones. Like I want to visit Chernobyl one day. That will be an adventure. And then my daughter wants to go to Paris, so we'll go do that. We'll go to Paris. And then I'm restoring like an old 1970s Chevelle, so I'm putting that into work. And then you know, travel. Just I'm a big fan of the ocean, so go to the ocean a lot.
Sounds great. Yes. Yeah. Okay, we are nearly coming to the end. Is there anything you want to tell your viewers or our viewers? Is there anything?
The first and the foremost important thing is, if you're listening to this and you're going, this is me, I want you to know you're not crazy. You didn't cause this, and there's nothing wrong with you. And you may not believe those things yet, but those are facts that are in the background, because what you feel, what you're going through, is a result of what you've been through, not a result of who you are or some flaw in you. And if you want assistance in growing into that awareness and discovering for yourself in that, check me out, because I'm at freetheself.com, or you can check me out by Googling me at freetheself.com, or my YouTube channel, Happiness After Codependency.
Great. This was very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And hope to talk to you soon. It was very nice.
Yeah, let's do it again.
I think we are going to see more videos like that. Hope to see, because they are so important issues for everyone to make the most in life, and about happiness and everything, and becoming better.
Well, it's discovering our betterness. I don't have to become better. I need to discover that I am, and then follow that voice.
Yes.
So it's not about fixing me, discovering and growing who I am, and choosing who I want to be. So it's a kind of a different angle than what we're used to. But I find that to be a much more effective, because now I don't have to figure out if I'm bad or good. I get what shows up and then receive the result that creates. And if that's what I'm looking for, I'm winning. You know, that works for me. And if it's not, then I can adjust how I'm showing up.
Oh, so thank you so much, Marshall.
Yeah,
I'd like to talk to you soon. We see. And I wish you all the best for all of your plans. And I wish you had a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. Thank you for your time and the privilege to come and share here. I really
very interesting. Very interesting. Good luck with your work.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye from Germany. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye from Boise, Idaho.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.